When it comes to voting and choosing the leaders of a nation, matters such as this strike very close to home, especially in a continent that is constantly rampaged with election scandals and things of that nature. At the heart of this motion today is the fate of a nation lies on its educated leaders. I read the motion again. The fate of a nation lies on its educated leaders. Debating this debate today is Mukaa boys versus Mbooni girls, high school for the Lower Eastern region, and all the best to both teams. Team proposition, first speaker, you have 3 minutes.
From the east to the west, from the south to the north, at whatsoever diversity of mindset, you can never convince a monkey that honey is sweeter than a banana. I, James Mwanzia, from the Mukaa boys, I'm here to firmly propose with this motion by starting to breathe shed light to the blind spot of your eye about the certain terminologies that are in this motion. First of all, we might ask ourselves, what is a nation? A nation is a large body of people united by a common descent, history, and government, culture, or language inhabiting a particular country or territory. Who is a leader? A leader is someone with a reason, with a vision, and the path to realizing it. And the fate is the same as saying the destiny of a nation. What is the destiny of the nation? So, at the first point, we have Rosalind Keita, who once stated that a leader takes people where they want to go, but also takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but ought to go. But at the side of this, we need to have unity, and that gives one of the roles of a leader, and gives the benefits of having educated leaders at the best positions of leadership. They bring unification in a country. Unification such as making people envisage or achieving a common goal is what we are talking about. Therefore, a leader has the responsibility of rallying people to contribute their strengths towards achieving common goals. Now, to rally people towards a common goal is not a mean task. It requires someone with some admirable understanding of human physiology so as to be able to reach each and every intended person. For the sake of certainty, I'll give an example of Nelson Mandela, who was the first South African president. When he came into office, many people across the Milky Way expected him to revenge against the whites. But 2 years after he became president of South Africa, that is 1991, he shook hands with F.W. de Klerk, and this brought about unity in the country. He then led his people in nation building. This made South Africa achieve a common goal. And finalizing on my first point, is that one of the goals of education is promoting national unity. And as such, we need educated people. And these educated leaders are at a better place of implementing this. Thank you. I rest my case. But in case of any assistance, an ambulance is still there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First speaker, team opposition, you have 3 minutes.
We don't go against facts, but you're trying to convince me that learned leaders are the main determinants or determining factors to the fate of many nations. Then I feel sorry for you, dear. My name is Priyan Abigail, and my name is Priyan Abigail from St. Theresa Mbooni Girls, and I'll be strongly opposing the motion that the fate of a nation lies on its educated leaders. Two definitions of terms. Fate, simply destiny. When we talk about nation, a mass of people governed in a centralized manner. It's not just about a leader, but educated leader. Who is an educated leader? This is a person in authority, who has achieved education. And I can see you're also agreeing to us. Why? You've talked of Nelson Mandela as an example of among the leaders who are educated. But through this, you've just showed that it's not about education alone. It's about education and also social and emotional intelligence. through it's a leader like Nelson Mandela, who had social and emotional intelligence, noticed that it wasn't about just education. He noticed that it was about, he came to picture and noticed that his government, his country would have gained more better. Let's talk of, what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about he thought of this, and so that his country is going to get more better infrastructures from these whites, and therefore he noticed that through this his country was going to be productive. We also talk about Robert Mugabe. Despite having 7 degrees, we see that his country fell into dilemma of uncivilization. And you try to convince me that educated leaders are going to be the fact determining our fate. I think I don't agree to this. Empowerment and education of nations and citizens. Educate one, empower one, and you notice that you empower a nation, you empower the world. Look at this. I mean, educate citizens and they'll be able to democratically choose good leaders. Moreover, they'll be able to hold leaders for their actions. Look at Chief Justice Maraga. We all saw him in 2019 stand up for the rights of the people of Kenya in the media against the previous honorable president, who wanted to fire the ministers in the different sections of the ministries in Kenya. Therefore, with those facts laid, I stand there are more other better factors. So try better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Second speaker, team opposition, you have 3 minutes.
Well. A leader is not a searcher for consensus, but a molder of consensus. My name is Marlon Mutune from the Mukaa school. I want to educate you, my fellow sister. In northern Britain, there were emirs who supported colonization. If you noticed, if you have read in history, the emirs were not educated. But when the educated elites stood up and said that they did not want colonization, northern Nigeria, got independence. Okay. Now, education equips leaders with skills that enables them to make good decisions for the people. For example, an educated leader can use SWOT analysis, that is, strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats, before engaging in capital-intensive projects. An educated leader will identify the strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats involved in any decisions before making them. This will ensure prudent use of public resources. A good example, it is here in Kenya, where we had Mwai Kibaki. Mwai Kibaki had attained a bachelor's in commerce, something like that, and he was the 3rd president of Kenya. When he became the president, according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics data, by the end of President Kibaki's first term in office, infrastructure plans were being implemented. Students in public primary schools had started learning free of charge. The number of public universities was increasing, and the economic growth shot by 7.1%. You can imagine what a great impulsive transmission. So, to my urge, I will like all of you to embrace educated leaders. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Second speaker, team opposition, you have 3 minutes.
Well, I think we've had enough chit-chats for one day. Let's get down to real business. My name is Hope Mwende from the Theresa Mbooni Girls, and a lot of unsubstantial claims have been made. You're saying that these educated leaders will use SWOT analysis. How many times have we heard about these leaders benefiting themselves, embezzling funds for themselves, for their own benefits? These funds which are put into sectors such as education, such as agriculture, yet they're the same leaders who embezzle these funds. So that's so irrelevant for you to tell us. We have so many factors that determine the fate of the country. We have calamities. For example, earthquakes in Philippines, tsunamis in Florida, volcanic eruptions, wildfires in America. These are natural causes which cannot be prevented beyond human capacity. This leads to rebuilding of structures which might have been destroyed during these earthquakes. Earthquakes could also lead to infertility of soils. And remember, many countries in Africa actually depend on agriculture as the backbone of their economy. So if the soils are infertile, if agriculture was their backbone of their economy, how then will they be able to get revenue for their country? According to SDG number 3, good health and well-being, SDG number 13, climate action, they will be greatly affected by these natural calamities. We are talking about pandemics which actually affect the fate of the country more than educated leaders. For example, the pandemic of COVID-19 that happened in 2020. This affected so many countries in the world, and up to date we still feel its effect. I mean, not only were the citizens affected, but also the leaders, them too had to stay home in order to prevent themselves from these diseases. So these pandemics affect the fate of countries more than these educated leaders. We have the youths. I mean, take example of Germany, a country whose the old population is larger than the youth. These countries actually realize that we need the youth, we need manpower, the youth which actually contributes the most to the working population. Therefore, Germany has created opportunities such as free scholarships, such as job opportunities with good working conditions, so that they may attract people to their countries, because they've realized that for the fate of their future, for the future of their countries, they need these youths. They need these youths to come into their country in order to develop their country. We know that we need educated leaders in our country, but there are so many other factors that actually affect the fate of our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Team Proposition, third speaker, you have 3 minutes.
Let me educate my sister here first. There's a difference between education and the greed. What we are talking about, the embezzlement of funds, it is part of greed, and the greed is part of character. It is not coming or coinciding together with education. Before you are a leader, success is always about growing yourself. But when you become a leader, it is all about growing other people. Educated leaders are able to strategize and plan about the country's economy and its GDP growth. They are educated and equipped with skills that enable them to make wise decisions for their people. Just like President Mwai Kibaki, he made a strategy, and hence Vision 2030 was born. Who doesn't know much about climate change in our country and also worldwide? Educated leaders marched together in Paris, in France, last week, and they came with solutions on how to deal with these climatic effects. They gave solutions on how we might reduce over-reliance on use of fossil fuels, on how to prevent or how to minimize the release of toxic gases inside from our own industrial areas. Well, my friends, education is just everything to also our leaders for their own decisions. Once these leaders are elected, they apply the education which they have received from their own schools, and they are able to apply it in order to save our own globe from what we normally know as global warming, which is so vital to us. And we need to bring Glasgow back on track. One sword has already been wielded before, and it is required to be wielded once again in order to save this. You have talked about the youth who are supposed to be growing and developing a country. But let me tell you, they have to do this because they are supposed to be educated in order to make very prudent decisions which are able to grow a country economically and also in its gross domestic production. Thank you.
Thank you very much, third speaker. Team Opposition, you have 3 minutes.
In courtesy of my history teacher, Madam Alonza, the little bit of what happened in the past is actually what has led to what the world is. The past events which make us determine the future events. You're saying that educating the youth exactly, not about the leaders. The proposition part has told us about the Vision 2030. Well, has it been achieved? No. The leaders used what you're calling SWOT analysis to identify our weaknesses, their opportunities, so that they could benefit themselves. And about the climate change. My fellow opposer here has talked about the tsunami, has talked about the volcano eruptions. How has the educated leaders helped us to solve the tsunamis? No, in no way. That is because these are natural factors which even educated leaders are not able to conquer, because after all, it's Mother Nature. You're saying that the government is able to strategize. How many strategies have been solved by the government? How many strategies have been laid there and solved? Very few, like 10% or even 2%. This is because the government is not in union. This is because there is political stability, which is a factor that will affect the fate of a nation more than the educated leaders. You may be educated, yes, but there is no unity between you. So how are you going to benefit us? The fate of the nation will decline. The peace within a nation and its neighborhood will really affect the fate of a nation. Take for instance, the war between Russia and Ukraine. The leaders there are beyond educated, I must say. But are they using their education to benefit the people? In no way. The people only end up dying. So what we need here is not educated leaders, but we need to educate our citizens. We need to educate the mass. We need to tell the mass what they should know and what they should not know. We need to tell the mass everything that they should know. And again, another factor that is even affecting the political on the political factor is the war in DRC and the war in Somalia. Look at the war in DRC. Where has the tourism sector gone? Down the drainage. So about the children there, what will their fate be? Their fate will be negative because they will not even get to interact with foreign people. So you're telling me about educated leaders who can just get into their aeroplanes and fly away. So how has our nation benefited? You're also not considering a fact which was said by Dr. Norman Aid of the University of Strathmore, that claimed that any superpower nation that is actually fighting, that is actually not uniting together, will decline due to the war. My name is Faith Joy Muruki, send the rest Mbooni girls, and I have removed all the false deptomy that have been delivered, and thank you.
Thank you very much to both teams. We will be taking closing remarks. Team Proposition, you have 1 minute to give your closing remark.
Let me ask you, where are these leaders coming from? They are coming from us. We are the youth. The youth are the ones who are supposed to be educated so that we can have leaders in the future. So my sister, I think you do not get my point. You're talking about unity. I've already explained why educated people and how they bring unity. So you are just debating on a losing motion. So, in conclusion, I was to educate you more, but due to time, I still have to go on. In conclusion, as from the research from Christian Kaiser, dated June 29, 2023, statistics show that 10% of people are natural leaders. Another 20% of people show some qualities of basic managerial talent, which are cultivated strongly to make up high quality leaders. These 10%, these 20% that are just have some talent, they are cultivated. Something of high quality must be cultivated down to them. And how is it going to be done? Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Nelson Mandela, the late former South African president, once said, "Let us all embrace our educated leaders and their leadership for a better tomorrow." I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Team Opposition. We will be taking closing remarks. You have 1 minute to give your closing remark.
Get this. We are not trying to demonize education. We actually want educated leaders, but we are trying to say that there are many factors that shape and characterize the fate of a country. They are either environmental, economic, social, or political factors which affect the fate of a country. You will not only pin down the fate of a country to educated leaders. A nation's destiny has very little to do with educated leaders. Therefore, as St. Theresa Mbooni girls, we rest our case.
Oops. Well. It was a tough one, breaking the tie. All teams have strongly presented their arguments. I'm going to give remarks for individual participants, and then my fellow judge will give general comments. James, in your introduction, you needed to bring that link of educated leaders well. You gave us the definition of the term fate nation. However, the link to educated leaders and the laying of the team's argument should have been captured well. However, you gave a very valid example, that one of Mandela. I wish you could have gone ahead and give his educational qualifications so that it can solidify your points. And that boils down to research. However, it was a good example, just developing it more. Then you have some good use of stage presence, good use of verbal and nonverbal cues. There is some conviction in your argument, and that undue marks, especially for style and presentation. However, you need to utilize your time well. As a first speaker, again, you need to give more examples apart from just one. Marlon, the concept of SWOT, you try to hammer it home well, but we felt from the judge's desk that you could have given us solid examples to back it up. Which leaders have used this and how has it worked? That could have made you score very well, especially for mastery of content. Then you said something about, of course, the example you gave of Mwai Kibaki, you mentioned something about commerce. He specialized in economics. However, it's just the same field, though his specialty was in economics. Then you mentioned something about Uhuru, third president. Uhuru was the fourth president. Then Kibaki, the third president. You could have said these statements without maybe, as you develop your argument, but we are very keen on this side. And these are facts which are there that we need to educate our audience. However, you're a very powerful debater. You're a debater with a lot of potential, and I'm seeing a very bright future in you. Probably consider law. You can scare witnesses and win those cases. Arnold, a very passionate debater. You only, however, restricted your points to Kenya. I wish you could have broadened your examples to However, you brought in the example of Paris, and then you could have gone ahead to mention which are these leaders who met there and what was their educational qualifications, because that is the gist of the matter. And that could have made you really stand out. However, you raised very logical arguments, and that is one technique of debating that will make you stand out, especially for coherence of argument. However, you need to utilize your time effectively. Strong team. Abigail, valid definition of terms. You brought in the concept of social and emotional intelligence. I wish you could have gone ahead and expounded on these aspects more. Do we have any other examples where social and emotional intelligence has triumphed over academic intelligence, especially in problem solving, in aspects to do with the leadership positions? That kind of, a connection could have made you really stand out. You brought on board the example of Robert Mugabe, which was to me a game changer, because with all his educational qualifications, we know where Zimbabwe headed to. Actually, you could have expounded more on that. Where did he eventually lead Zimbabwe to? How did he leave power? This could have made you really stand out, that academics is not everything. There are also other things that can make a leader stand out. There is something you spoke about, CJ, the former CJ Maraga, versus Uhuru wanting to fire the ministers. That was a very general statement. I wish you backed it up with some facts, because you needed to back it up so that it scores. Otherwise, it was just a statement made for the sake of it from this angle. But you're a very passionate debater, and with more practice, you will stand out big time. Hope, you had a lot of points, but I felt like they were, hanging in a way. You were throwing them here, bringing them here, and the main thing that we have is the fate of the nation lying on its educated leaders. When you spoke about scholarships, for example, so who is responsible for this? Is it the citizens? Is it the government? So that kind of a thing, you needed to clinch your points well back to the motion in order for your argument to stand out. Otherwise, for style and presentation, you stood out. For coherency of argument, that is where you just need to twist it a little bit so that we are good to go. And that can happen with mock rehearsals before you come to the stage, and also trying to organize your thoughts and your points. Faith, you try to rebuttal on the SWOT analysis. I wish you could have expounded more, especially on the last one on threats, that leaders will kill and all that in order to survive, such kind of a thing, and give examples where this has happened. Because with the research, there are quite a number of points. You brought on board the Ukraine versus Russia examples, and then you spoke about their leaders. What are the educational qualifications? Remember, the gist of the matter here is the fate of the nation lies on its educated leaders. So that bit should have come out well. Otherwise, you had very good use of rhetorical questions. This was a tough duel. Thank you.
Mine is just a general comment. Jomo has covered everything that we had spoken about. I'll go back to examples. I'd have wanted to hear more global examples from the proposers, but then that's just it. For the parting shots, I think both teams did exemplary, and congratulations. May the best team win.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of yet another debate in the heated region for Lower Eastern, and I will go straight to announcing the results. For Mukaa boys, the judges awarded you with 64%. A round of applause, please, for Mukaa boys. For St. Theresa Mbooni girls, the judges awarded you with 64%. A round of applause, please, for St. Theresa Mbooni girls. And we have a tie for both teams. Again, congratulations to both teams. Thank you very much on our end. We have come to the end of this debate. Remember to check more of this content and tournaments on our social media handles. That's at The Debate Circle on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok, and on Threads, as well as LinkedIn at The Debate Circle. And from us here, it's Kwaheri.